the British still have their influence here. Even in our language, the words that we use, the way that we speak, there's some you can see the link. And it hasn't been that long ago. It's only been about I don't remember 80 or so years since we gained independence from the British. And the Dutch, we have a city south, I think, of Kuala Lumpur called Malacca. And had that when you go to the city, you see a lot of Dutch influences
Mm.
and even in the culture. And I I think the Portuguese as well for a bit. Yes, the Portuguese because we have certain words in Malay that are similar to certain words in Portuguese, and I don't remember which words, but I know for sure. I read about it, and I thought it was pretty interesting.
Mm.
You know.
And in terms of your personal language abilities, so English is your first language,
Yes.
and how well can you speak Mandarin or Malay?
Okay, so you want me to explain how bad I am at being a Malaysian? Well, yes, like you said, English is my first language, and it is also my strongest language. I know a little bit. I know a bit of everything. I know a bit of Malay. I know a bit of Chinese, like Mandarin and Cantonese, but not well at all. Like I can't. Like I would say I'm very lower intermediate for Malay because Malay was my first second language. I think. I don't know. The lines get a little blurry when I go like when I think about how I was really young, because obviously I would have relatives around me speaking Mandarin or Cantonese, and and I guess in a way that you could consider that as a second language just purely by immersion. Um, but definitely Malay it's mandatory to learn Malay. Um, being in Malaysia, obviously, because the official language, and so in school, right from the start, we would have Malay classes. So Malay and Chinese, second and third languages, and then after that, my foreign language after that would have been French. And I'd say if I had to rank it now, it would be like English, like fluent, obviously, hopefully. Doesn't feel like it sometimes. Um, and French being my strongest second language, and then Malay, and then Chinese. And I definitely love to be more competent in Chinese because that's, for obvious reasons. Yeah.
But everyone in your family speaks English.
Yes, yes, for sure. Because that's what we speak at home. Well, my parents they speak Cantonese between themselves, but when the entire family communicates, it's in English.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that was where we actually met. We recently met at a Mundolingo event. It's called in Montreal, which is for anyone who doesn't know, it's a language exchange event. We I'm going there to I go there to speak to people in Spanish and also trying to practice my French. But obviously, when we met, we just ended up talking English. Um, and I think it's really amazing here how again there's also so many different languages, so much influence here in Montreal. Um, but yeah, we definitely need to put in some more work into learning our French here.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, like you said, Montreal and languages. I think are a great way to connect with people, and it's a way that I've been connecting. I've gotten to connect with lots of people in the past few years. And it's a thing that we love to talk about, me and my best friends as well, and to find like similarities. For example, my one of my best friends, she speaks Arabic, right? And we were talking about one time about languages, and we were very delighted to find out that there were similarities between Malay and Arabic. Not a huge amount, right? Like if I knew Malay, I wouldn't know Arabic, but there was some words that were pretty much the same, and we were going crazy, and it was also why I was able to learn the Arabic numbers from 1 to 10 pretty easily because it had links to the Malay days. So that was interesting. But yeah, it's like yeah.
Yeah. So I think part of the reason that maybe you haven't learned so much French is that you went to McGill, right? The English university here in Montreal.
Yeah, I did. It's English. It's bilingual, so all of the communications that come from admin is in both French and English, but the classes are conducted in English unless you take a French course. And student clubs, a lot of things they run in English. It's not to say that you won't encounter French because you will, and there are a lot of French nationals as well here, and of course lots of Quebecois they speak French. But you could definitely, let's say you could definitely go through your entire degree in McGill without really knowing French, and I know people who do. Yeah.
I think not only that, but you can go your whole time living in Montreal without learning French. You know, there are
Yes,
people.
but yeah, go ahead.
One should learn. One should learn. I think it's definitely something out of respect. I do see that if we go and move to a place where they speak another language, we should do our very best to learn that language,
Hmm.
especially if we consider it to be our future home for the rest of our lives.
Hmm.
But one could live in Montreal without learning a word of French.
So we should be conducting this interview in French from now on. Oh,
I know,
what?
I know
Okay,
we're not there. I know we're not there. Maybe in a year, maybe.
maybe it's possible, but but we'll see. But no, I want to say like yes, you could live in Montreal not knowing French, but besides the respect thing, I also think that you really only be living in 50% of Montreal, and that is both like literally like geographically and also culturally and just living in all aspects really because I mean for one I don't know if you've seen the map of the like distribution of languages in Montreal or at least for French and English, but it's almost a pretty solid like distinction between the English speaking left side of the island and the French speaking right side of the island, with downtown being a huge mix. But I read somewhere how someone was saying that you won't be living, like you won't fully be living in a city, and I do agree. Knowing English, just because you just won't be able to engage with the things that are happening in Montreal. Events happen in there. It's bilingual, as we said, like it's French and English, but there's some things that are really primarily in French. Um, and like for example street signs, I don't know if you can really drive without knowing at least a bit of French because they're definitely only in French.
Mhm.
um but or like you go to the store and you want to ask a question or you want to find something and you can't because you only speak English. Or you go out to restaurants and sometimes you have a French menu and you scan a QR code if for the English menu, for example, or that's if you're lucky. um Yeah, I had something and I forgot about it, but
No, I think it is really interesting what we've got onto here. That there is this big something that I had no idea how strong this idea of Quebec culture is, Quebecois culture. Um, that we just don't have any. I don't know how much you knew about it before you arrived, but I just imagine Quebec is another part of Canada, and I didn't realize I had some friends from smaller towns that I met in Australia, and we talked a little bit about it, but it's really hard to understand that until you get here. That there is this strong sense of identity. I have a friend who who doesn't consider herself Canadian. She considers herself Quebecois.
oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it. it is really interesting for me to see, and I think obviously it's not something that we are ever going to be able to understand. I don't think you can really understand something like that without being from that place. The
Mhm.
same the same as any independence movement, be that Scotland from the UK or Catalonia from the rest of Spain.
Or Texas from the US.
No, I think they're pretty proudly Yankees.
Hmm.
But yeah, it is really interesting to see, and I think you do see a hell of a lot of European influence here in Montreal. And Montreal itself functions very differently from the rest of Quebec. I don't know how much you've seen of Quebec. I don't know if you've been out of the city. Personally, I haven't.
Mhm.
But from my understanding, and we were talking about this the other day as well, when you do leave the city, the level of English drops a lot. And I think the further you go away from Montreal or the bigger cities, even more. My friend told me, I don't know if I'm misquoting her exactly, that, and I told you this the other day, I don't know how true it is, that it is illegal to teach English in school. I don't know exactly how true that is or how I might have misinterpreted that.
I mean,
But
the word illegal is a very strong word to use,
it is
right?
a very strong word, and that was what shook me when she told me. I would like to record an episode with her when she comes back, so I'll ask her more about that there. But I think I understand that they want to keep this sense of identity, and they don't feel like that they fit. Some of them don't feel like they fit in with the rest of Canada.
Hmm. Yeah, even in immigration, right, or anything government related, when you see a web page or you read a web page on Canada's official website, it usually explains some process, and then they say if you are from Quebec, blah 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 blah, because there's always a different set of rules. But also, what I don't think a lot of people realize is that the official language here is French only. Like it's not French and English. Like the official language is French. Canada is bilingual.
From
Yeah, yeah. Like it's not. We're not bilingual. We're technically French. It's only Canada that's and like coming here is when I learned a lot about how Canada works and how provinces have a lot of power and they're able to be very different from each other, like the provinces. But what you said was pretty funny because it's true, right? It's like Quebec is kind of different from Canada, but within Quebec, Montreal itself is also pretty different from Quebec, and that causes a lot of tensions on a political side, right? Because yeah, I'm not gonna go into that, but yeah, yeah, language like Montreal is just different from Quebec. I'd say it's sufficiently different from Quebec.